Welcome to Hotel Vermont. My name is Hans, and I'm very delighted to welcome you here. This is the end of our 4th season of Female Founder Series. And so today is a gorgeous day, and with Barbara Ann here, I just got to ask, who started the day at the mountain today? Who was out skiing this morning? Come on, admit it. It's okay. Lo, were you? Okay, so we have... today was a day that you did not want to miss, right, Barbara?
It was gorgeous.
Just absolutely gorgeous at the hill. And I know Dave's lying because I'm sure he was there this morning too. Come on, you had a meeting this morning. I know Mary was there. But thank you very much for being here, and particularly in a time where people get a little worried about gatherings and what's going on in the world. We're very aware of that as well. And I think we're very fortunate we're in Vermont as well. And I realized this morning that skiing is actually, or snowboarding is actually, or cross-country skiing is the perfect activity in a time like this. It's fresh air, nobody breathing in your face, no handshaking, or you have your gloves on. It's perfect. So I recommend that as a remedy. We also have some blue bottles of hand sanitizer going around in case you're shaking hands a lot tonight and hugging.
Let's hear it for hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer. And this is from Luna Roma, and it's got non-GMO alcohol in there. Very important when you treat your hands, and also a female founder. So very proud of that company. So on this with Dave. Thanks again for being here.
Great, thanks, Hans. All right, we'll keep this quick. Hi there, I'm Dave Bradbury. I get to work with Sam at VCET, and thanks for coming out. I forgot my name tag again. This is our 15th event, and I had a sticky and everything that said, you got to do it this time. And I failed, so I'm Dave, sorry. Thank you for coming out and making the effort. I think as we all look to improve our own lives and that of Vermont, it really comes through entrepreneurs, the risk takers, the mentors, the folks that back ideas with capital, with facilities, and with support. So you're all in this room. We've seen investor groups form. We've seen people get money. We've seen mentor-mentee relationships happen as well, or just that good old thing called, hey, let's have a beer or grab coffee and chat. And again, thank you. Part of it is just showing up. That makes all the difference. And we couldn't be more thrilled at VCET to play a small little role. I just want to thank Hotel Vermont, Hans and Lauren, when they're not skiing, do a great job running this place. So thank you for hosting us again in the 4th year. And also Media Factory that is taping this. So this does go into about 30 or so thousand households here in Vermont. I was really pleased to learn. How many states do you think we're in, Sam?
I think at least 3.
Oh, come on. There was 4.
Yeah.
Florida.
4. I think he's rounding up.
Some people in Florida actually watch this show. So it's not really a show, but I think that's kind of neat. So the interest is high. What we do in Vermont is applicable to the world. And I really think, Sam, don't mess it up because you're national. And I will say, just please go back and forth to the snacks and to the bar. As able, we'll take questions at the end. I'll run around with a microphone and some hand sanitizer. We're good.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Thank you.
You may
Enjoy.
be seated. Keeping it super formal this time. What if I just went real formal with it? All of a sudden, surprise. Just kidding. I'm Sam Roach-Gerber. I'm the Director of Innovation at VCET. And I am so happy to be here. I do want to start by mentioning that, unfortunately, Laura Farrell cannot join us tonight. She's not feeling well and wanted to make sure that all of you stayed healthy. So Laura was really, really bummed, but she wanted to say, all of you, she's sorry she's going to miss it, but we have 2 awesome speakers that are here and ready to chat with us and healthy, so that's all good. So as Dave mentioned, we started the Female Founders Series in 2016 to demystify the journey of entrepreneurship and to tell the stories of some of Vermont's really incredible women. And so athletes is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's one that I've been wanting to do for a while. And I personally spent the first couple decades of my life dedicated to athletics. I had parents that were super encouraging and had tons of opportunity, and it taught me everything I know about hard work and persistence and teamwork and self-confidence. but it's not always fun and fulfilling. So I made it about 1 year in Division I field hockey before the stress really got to me and had potentially the hardest sort of mental health situation of my life. And so luckily I was able to kind of switch gears, make some really important decisions for me and keep athletics in my life. But it's really hard. And there's a lot of pressure, I think, especially for young women. It can be a beautiful thing, but it's also really challenging. But the incredible women that are joining me tonight, they have dedicated themselves and their careers to the sports that they love. So I am absolutely thrilled to be sitting here with Barbara Ann Cochran, former World Cup alpine ski racer, Olympic gold medalist, and founder of BA Cochran Consulting. And then my friend Orla Walsh, professional athlete, Spartan Race Winner, Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge, and $1 Million Mile participant, and like 10 other things. So I want to start, and it's as much as we miss Laura, it's kind of nice that we have two folks tonight because we can really dig in a little bit deeper with them than we usually are able to, right? So we'll start with your social security numbers. No, I'm just kidding. So Barbara Ann, why don't we start with you? Why don't you just give us a little bit background of who you are and why you came out here tonight?
Okay. How close do I have to be to this?
I think that sounds pretty good.
Okay. Good. All right. I just want to make sure I don't fall off the chair.
We'll look the other way if you do.
Okay, thanks. What was your question again?
Great start. Just tell us a little bit about your background and why you're here tonight.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it's an easy one. It's a low ball,
yeah.
you know.
My background is that I grew up with my brother and two sisters and parents in a really, skiing was our winter sport. So skiing's a great sport for families because you can really do it, I started my kids when they were like a year and a half, 2 years old, and I could ski with them. There's a lot of sports I think that you try and do, and it's really frustrating when the kids are really young. But in skiing, they can do it along with the parents, and it just seems like it's a great sport for that. So when I was young, my parents started the four of us when we were, Dad was a coach at Windsor High School, and so we skied in the winter. That was how we really got into it. And when Sam asked me to come here, it was like, to be honest, I didn't really know too much about it, but I just thought, a women's panel, that's really, it should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward. And actually, I've known Laura Farrell for a really long time, and it wasn't until just a couple days ago that I went back through and read the emails really read them, who the guests were and stuff.
And appreciate the honesty.
And found out that Laura, I was going, Laura's she's on the panel too, so I was really excited. But I'm really just happy to be here and to share my story and what's happened. So anyway, a little bit.
Thanks, Barbara Ann.
Yeah.
Orla?
Hey, can you guys hear me all right? All right. So I do CrossFit with Sam, and that's how we met. And I guess when she instantly asked me, I had to look at my schedule because I actually work tonight at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So I was like, yes, I can do it. I just can't drink, which is fine. Darn it. You don't want to see me when I start drinking anyways. I'd have silly conversations. But so she just instantly, when she asked me, I was like, hell yeah, I want to come here and represent women. It's International Women's Day yesterday, was it? Yeah. So celebrate the women in this room. Women and girls and everything like that. And I just want to share my story. So on my Instagram and my social medias, I just am myself. I don't hold back. I don't really swear, so it's kid friendly. And I
do, to be clear.
Yeah, I just want people to know who I am, what I've been through, and use my platform today and every day just to like inspire young, whether it's girls or boys or adults, that you can do, like you can follow your dreams and do whatever you like put your mind to. And I've had a lot of adversities which we can go over, and just been through a lot of crap, and life can deal you some cards that, some people have a perfect life, you think, or they have both their parents, or they're injury free. And I've been through a lot of that stuff. So you can like get through anything if you put your mind to it. And I think I just want to be here to like tell you guys that, and represent, I don't know, Vermont's. I'm also known as the Vermonster, so I coined that name for myself. I know there's like the Ben & Jerry's ice cream thing. So I do love ice cream, but I'm lactose intolerant too, so it's hard. It's a hard...
Talk about struggles.
Yeah, struggles.
Man.
But it was to make me different and stand out. Like, I know my name is different, and me as a person, I'm pretty eccentric and just sort of unique, but that's who I am. And so I just want everyone to know, like, the Vermonster from Vermont, and that, like, I'm coming for every female athlete that I race. So if I'm in this room, I'm racing you. I'm going to beat you at some point. But, like, just being passionate about what I want to do in my life and being driven is, like, also why I'm here, just to, like, show that it takes a lot of passion, energy, commitment, and you have to have your friends and family on board. I think there's those quotes like, surround yourself with like the tribe that will support you and raise you. Maybe I just made that up, but kind of like you have to surround yourself with people with like-minded like goals and energy. So just remember, if you're surrounded by crappy people and they're not really supporting your vision and your dreams, you probably should drop them and keep moving forward.
Love it. A couple teabag quotes in there for sure.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to start with is if you, and Barbara, we can start with you and kind of work our way this way. By work our way, I mean, then you'll go.
We don't have to compete.
Yeah. Getting my hunger back for competing.
Actually, the day I walked into CrossFit, Orla looked at me and said, "I will beat you." And I was like, "Oh God, no, I'm just kidding."
I actually keep that to myself.
It's very, very inclusive community. Highly recommend. Mountain Trail CrossFit, by the way. Yeah. So, Barbara Ann, did you ever? And you grew up in a very notorious skiing family, very talented. Can you talk a little bit about whether you felt pressure to succeed? If so, how did you cope with that? And if not, how were you supported?
Well, it's really interesting because a lot of people think that, to be an Olympic gold medalist, of course you had to be pressured to do all the things that you did. And actually, I really feel like in our family that it turned out that we weren't really pressured. My dad, there is something that we call the Cochran way, and it's kind of the philosophy of my parents and how we were raised, and especially what we could gain from being in sports, being an athlete. And basically, the message was that it wasn't all about winning. That was the thing that my dad made very clear to me anyway. I'm not sure that my sister, Marilyn, got the same message that I did, but because she's very competitive and even to this day. And anyway, there's a lot of competitiveness in our family, but for me, Dad always felt that he wanted us to be able to work hard at whatever we were doing, and he felt that striving to do well in something was an important lesson to learn in life. And so for him in skiing, he wanted us to learn that it took a lot of hard work to become accomplished at it, and it took a lot of like nitpicking, and but he also wanted us to know that it wasn't all about winning, that you could gain a lot of satisfaction from actually just being a participant in a sport. And so that's kind of the message that we got. And interesting enough, my neighbor where I live now, she was a very good athlete. She competed in college. I don't even know what sports she competed in, but she was a good athlete. And she was assuming that she got a lot of pressure from her dad especially, and she assumed that I must have felt the same way in my family. And the truth is I didn't. I felt like that I was there to do my best. I wasn't there to be the best, but to just try and put out and do what I could do. There's a story that when my younger sister, Lindy, was a freshman in high school, she was probably the most social of all of us, and she decided that she didn't really want to be a ski racer. She wanted to play basketball because she wanted to be with her friends. And so we were all going, "You're going to tell Dad?" And so she broke it to Mom first, and then she broke it to Dad. And so Dad was actually pretty cool with it. He was going, "Okay, she wants to play basketball. That was okay." And but by that time, we would train Tuesday and Thursday nights behind the house. And we'd have friends come from all over that would train with us on the rope tow. And so even though it was like a Tuesday or Thursday night, Lindy would come out and ski with us. She just wouldn't train or run the courses or anything. So Dad noticed that, and he noticed that she wasn't skiing right where the courses were, but she would go off onto the side of the trail and ski over there. So one night he went out a little bit ahead of time and set a course where she would come down. And so he watched her, and what happened was that she skied down, and then all of a sudden she saw the course. So she stopped, and she looked at it, and then she ran it. And after that, she was back to being a ski racer. So sometimes I think my dad could be a little bit sneaky about, how maybe that wasn't true pressure, but it was a little bit of pressure to see if he could bring her back in. So, but I truly feel that we weren't pressured to be the best, and I think that really was one of the things that helped me get to do what I did and get to be where I was.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's another story that I'll tell you. I'm full of stories here, but
Love
in
it.
in 1970 was when I was in the World Championships, which is like the Olympics, but it's just for your sport. And in the slalom, which was my best event, I had come in. I was in the top 10, but I was, 7th, maybe 8th. I don't know what it was. And Marilyn was 3rd after the first run. And so I hiked up the course, memorized the course for the second run, and I was getting really nervous because I was going, "Come on, you want to do better than this. You don't want to, be. You'd really like to get up on the podium if you could." And so those were my thoughts, like, "Oh man, what do I have to do to go faster than all these other girls? And what do I have to do to win or at least come in second or third?" And so when I got to the top of the course, there was a fence that kept all the spectators behind the fence. And I knew my dad was in with that crowd of spectators. So I looked for him, and he saw me. He came over to me, and I said, "Dad, I'm just so nervous for the second run." And all he had to tell me was, he was very, very calm. So if you're a parent of athletes, just be very calm to start with. But and what he said was, "I always thought you were the cool cucumber in the family." I thought that was the dorkiest thing he could say, but what happened was that I went, "Yeah, I am." And so it calmed me right down, and I didn't worry about how I was going to do. My focus before that had been on the results. My focus after that was that I was a cool cucumber, So I took my second run, and I ended up second in that race.
Woo!
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
Orla, how about you?
Yeah, I think also just to get on the tail end of that comment, that I've noticed for the most part, anytime that I'm racing, I do Spartan Stadium races. It's kind of like you go into Fenway or Citizens Bank or New York Mets. We're all over the country where we get to run through the whole stadium, not on the infield, but It's sort of like CrossFit, but just like even more painful, and it usually lasts from like 20 to 40 minutes. So while I'm doing like my specific type of racing, my friend of a friend was like, yeah, every time you just seem so calm and just like chill, like that's when you do your best and you don't miss your spear. The spear throw in Spartan Race is like, I don't know, the Achilles or like the Superman's kryptonite, sort of. Like you miss the spear, it gets in your head, and then all you can get when you run up to the spear, it's like, I'm gonna miss, and guess what? When you say that, you're gonna miss. And so I think being that calm, cool as a cucumber, and the pressure, honestly, the most pressure comes from yourself. And I don't know if anyone else in this room can say that. But like, no one else is forcing me to go to the start line. No one was forcing me to the track meets or the soccer games. I used to live in Idaho, so I would drive from Twin Falls to Pocatello or Twin Falls to Boise to do these club teams, and I'm the one that wanted to do it. I mean, my parents thankfully paid for me to do it, but they paid me to get me out of the house too, probably. But that's my little brother. He's like, man, I should do these if they're gonna pay me. Yeah, so I've done a lot of introspective work on myself, which as you get older and mature, when you're young, you don't have this capability, and if you do, like, that is so amazing. But now that I'm the ripe age of 34, I have done so much work looking inwards and just understanding that no one is forcing any of, and some people have parents that pressure them, and you know, that's another thing that people need to work on, but I was never pressured. We just grew up going to Hardack in St. Albans, doing the rope tow, and just like doing all the sports, just being outside, just getting out and playing. And I was playing with the boys, and I was playing soccer. And so I've just realized the pressure that comes from within can be debilitating and can be really detrimental to your fitness and your sport. And I think it's important as athletes just looking at that, like, we're the ones that is pressuring ourselves. So slowing down, and also like just like asking yourself, why are you doing this? Because sometimes you forget why you started the sport, that it's because you loved it and you had so much fun and it brought you so much joy. And as you become professional and these high-end elite athletes, it's a job. I mean, like, I made some dang good money, and I still do, but I show up to CrossFit, or I used to, like, oh, I have to get this workout in. I have to do this one. Otherwise, I'm not going to beat the girls in the race. Like, I have to not sleep. I'm like, we used to sleep 4 or 5 hours between night shifts so I can work out, and, you know, get my stuff done. And so just taking that time to understand that, like, we put the pressure on ourselves, and, yeah, slowing down and understanding that why you started what you were doing, whether it's a sport, whether it's, you know, a job, but just like always remembering the why, because I've noticed a lot of adult athletes forget that, and you get so caught up, and then you're like, this isn't fun anymore. I hate this. I'm like miserable. I'm unhappy. And then you start plateauing with your fitness, and then you start going downhill. And then it's like, oh my God, I suck, and like all the things that you can go through your head, and you can make yourself kind of crazy just being in your head. So I just challenge any athlete, if it's the pressure you're feeling from within, to take a pause. I tore my ACL, and it was like the worst thing and the best thing I could have ever happened to me. We can talk about that too later, but it's given me the off season that I would have never had, a forced off season. Every athlete shouldn't be competing all year round. You should be in your sport, and unfortunately my season could be all year round. So then how does one delineate when you take time off and when you recover and rest? And for me, it's like really hard to sit still. So rest and recovery would seem like 2 weeks in between a full year of racing. And if you think of that, that's insane to be an elite athlete for almost 12 months and then restart that again. So I think just the full circle of the pressure I've felt has always been within, and my family has supported me in every way as an athlete, and just like, you know, as financially as they could. I have a twin brother and an older sister and a little brother. that it was tough. Like sports, skiing, like all these things are really expensive. Running is probably like the cheapest because you can get some shoes and just go outside. And then they give you the track uniform in high school or grade school. So, and then there's I hear cross country girls from St. Albans. I'm hoping I am assistant coaching with them next year, so that's really exciting. Anyway, that's my ramble, and I'm done.
No, that was great. There was no rambling in that at all. I was like, so one thing that I talk about with my husband a lot is we're like, dang, if I had known what I know now, like as a high school athlete, like the two things for me are like cross training. I did almost no cross training, or weightlifting or anything like that. And then two was nutrition. So I ate terribly. I ate really infrequently. So our like high school lunchtime was 10:30 a.m. Wow. Literally what? And then my practice was at 3 p.m. and I wondered why I had no energy. So those are my two things that I think about. And I'm like, oh, I could have been so good if I had just done those things. So that's one of my favorite questions to ask is just, if you woke up tomorrow morning and you were your high school self, what would you do differently?
For me, I'm not sure that one of the things that I've really been interested in now is the sports psychology, and that's what I do with my BA Cochran coaching is work with athletes on sports psychology, and it's not because I went to school to become a sports psychologist. I'm not a sports psychologist, but I feel like I've learned sports psychology from the inside out, and so those are the things that I wish I had known more about when I was in high school, or even after racing. Sometimes as I learn things, I feel like I'm constantly learning things, and I think some of the things that I did back when I was in my 20s and racing, I did, and I learned about probably 15, 20, 30, 40 years later, what I was doing actually made sense. and so I think I was just kind of by luck able to do things. Like I knew nothing about affirmations, and now that's one of the things that I do talk about with athletes is using affirmations. And affirmations is just a simple positive statement with three parts to it. It's either first person, so I or we if you're a team, and then it has to be stated positively because your subconscious mind doesn't hear the negatives. So you don't want to say, don't lean in on that gate, because if a coach is saying that, what ends up the picture in my mind anyway is somebody leaning in, and then you try and do what you're picturing, so you end up leaning in. So it has to be positive. And then the last thing is that it has to be present tense, because if you say, well, I'm going to be really aggressive in this course, I will be really aggressive in this course, your subconscious mind kind of takes it like, well, maybe next run I'll do it, I'll be really aggressive, or maybe tomorrow I can be really aggressive, but it doesn't put it in the present tense. So if you want the affirmation to be happening, you put it in the present tense, like I'm always aggressive when I practice or when I race, and I knew nothing about that. I knew nothing when I was racing. When I was in the Olympics, I didn't know there were things such as affirmations. But what happened was that there were a lot of questions before that summer and fall before the Olympics, and questions from the media, questions from relatives, friends, etc. And usually what they said was, how do you think the U.S. ski team's going to do at the Olympics next year? And my answer was always the same. I think we're going to do really well. I think we've got a lot of talent. We're very capable. We could win medals. And then their next, I guess they didn't really believe me. So, so their next question would be, well, how do you think you can do? And what I would tell them is over and over again, I said, I don't know if I'll win at the Olympics, but what I do know is that I'm capable of winning. And by saying that I'm capable of doing that, it really got me into a good place, so that when I was at the Olympics, that was not a question in my mind. I had no doubt whatsoever. I just felt like any woman on that hill, I could ski with them, you know. I didn't see myself as inferior at all. And I think that was a large part because I kind of lucked by having to answer that question over and over again. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to win, but what I do know is I'm capable of doing it. So I think I kind of lucked into some things like that I know now and makes a lot of sense to me. But back then it was like, if it did happen, it was by circumstance.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I kind of sort of the same situation. Fitness just sort of came natural, and it comes natural to me. So I was really fast in high school running. I was a swimmer before that, and soccer was my other passion. And it just, like, I didn't have to almost practice at track. I was that jerk, a sprinter that would just, like, meander around the workouts, and just, like, the girls would beat me in practice every day, and then came to meet, I would beat them, and they were so pissed every time. And I feel bad, but, like, that was just how it was. And, like, there was no rhyme or reason. I just would get onto the track and do my 200, 100s and just kick their heinies. So it was, like, great. But in terms of high school, I don't know what I would do super differently. I wasn't into dating boys, and I think that can be really deterring for athletes when you have distractions. And I think I've seen some of my professional athletes they go to the extreme of, like, not dating girls or, like, not having those distractions, which I have a fiance, he's here, and he's surely not a distraction and has supported me and really helped me through like really good chats and highlights and reminds me of the positives that I'm doing or that I am a great athlete. I didn't have in high school, like, the imposter syndrome. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, and we can get into that, but, like, more psychology. Dude, like, being an athlete is more, I'd say 60% mental, and then the 40% is your fitness. Because if you're not right in your head, if you're not straight, if you're not, like, just if you're in your head, which I've been in my head for the last 6 months with my injury, and that's other stuff we can talk about, being in your head can just get you in this rabbit hole, and you can have the imposter syndrome of, like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. Like, I saw the panel, imposter syndrome, and I was like, what? I don't belong up here. Like, why do they want me to sit up here? And so working through the psychology aspects in high school, I guess, like, I didn't have any of that stuff that I needed to, so that was fine. Not everyone has. You have to deal with that. If you're a great athlete, it just comes to you. I guess, like, the one thing, like, I'm still working through is my mother died the day I graduated high school, and that sucked. That was about 16 years ago, and I'm super grateful that, like, it happened. I didn't really know she was going to pass away, and it was sort of sudden, and had I known in weeks or months before that, I would have never gone to state track. I would have never gone to the soccer tournaments, and I would have never signed the D1 track and field contract that I got recruited for out east at Towson University. And had I, known and changed my track as a young athlete, I probably wouldn't have gone to college, and I probably wouldn't have become a nurse. And I wouldn't have fulfilled my soccer and track stuff as a senior in high school. So as much as, like, it was sad and all of that, I'm glad she like kind of just hung in there. Didn't really, we didn't talk about that stuff. There's a lot, it's kind of deep, but I probably would have dropped out of everything. So in terms of that, I'm grateful that, like, I continued my track and my soccer and graduated and did all of that. And then the psychology stuff has been so interesting as an adult, now working through things, and, like, a lot of it's self-driven, self-introspection, and then that pressure that we put on ourselves. So as a high school student, I think I enjoyed being a lazy track sprinter, and the times were fast, so that was cool. And playing soccer for some really cool, like, ODP, Olympic Development Program teams and traveling teams was just a really good experience. And then not dating till I graduated. So all you high school girls and boys, just wait till you graduate.
You have plenty of time for that, right? So young girls aren't always encouraged to pursue sports professionally. and you guys have both, in your own sort of unique ways, found a way to make it happen, right? To make this part of your job. So can you talk a little bit about transitioning from sports purely as a hobby to a career, starting with you, Barbara Ann, and then Orla, maybe you can get a little bit more detail into what kind of competitions you've been in as well.
Okay, so I was 23 when I stopped racing, which is actually really, really young. But I felt, at that point in time, I really felt like I was burned out. I felt, for the last probably 2 years, so the next 2 years after the Olympics, I did continue to race. But those 2 years, when I look back on it now, it's like I wanted an excuse to actually stop racing, but I didn't want to make that decision myself. So what I thought was, I kind of, in a way, I wish that I would have gotten hurt so that I didn't have to make the decision myself. It didn't happen. I didn't get hurt. But so at the age of 23, I decided to go back to school because I would try and fit in college when I could. And so if it was an Olympic year, then I wouldn't go to school at all. But after the Olympic year, I'd go to school in the fall and then take off so it actually, so I think I'm a 9-year graduate of college. Took me a long time to get through. But one of the things I did know was that I really felt like I was a teacher. I felt like, looking back, I think I was 10 years old, and Dad had built the rope tow in our backyard so that we could ski more than just on weekends. And it was open to the public, always open to the public. I think it was 25 cents to ski for a day.
I think that's what
back in the
Stowe's
day.
Pass is this year.
So, but there was we didn't have a ski school or anything, but there was a young couple that came, and they said, is there anybody that can teach us how to ski? And so Dad put it out to us and just said, anybody want to teach them how to ski? And I had that, just desire to be a teacher, so I said, I will. And so I tried to teach them how to do a snowplow. And actually, now looking back on it, it's like they had to ride the rope tow, and it's like, I can't believe that one of your first experiences on skis would be to actually ride a rope tow. And then I just remember teaching them how to do a snowplow, and I kept saying, you got to get all your weight on your outside ski, on your downhill ski. And so I'd show them how to do that, and I could see that they were really trying to do it, but they would be pushing on their downhill ski, but their upper body weight was like over their uphill ski. So I finally, I was really frustrated. I went to Dad and I said, Dad, I keep telling them get all their weight on their downhill ski, and they don't do it. It's like they're trying. I can see that they're pushing on that downhill leg, but their weight is like over the uphill ski. So one of the things that he said to me, which was a great lesson, was he said, sometimes you have to tell them something in different words. You say the same thing, but you just use different words to explain it. So I said, well, what do you mean? And so he said, well, instead of telling them to get all their weight on their downhill ski, why don't you tell them to get all their weight off their uphill ski? And so I did that, and it was like magic. So I feel like I was ready to go to school. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I love kids. I didn't know if I wanted to be an elementary school teacher, if I wanted to teach in higher grades. But the other thing that I was really interested in was nutrition. I thought nutrition was really key, and probably could have done more with it when I was a racer. And I had taught myself to sew. I love to sew. And so I talked to a cousin who was a elementary school teacher, and I kind of debated whether to go into the elementary school teaching or home economics, and home economics just had a lot of different fields that I thought I was really interested in. So I did go and become a home economics teacher, at which I think it really disappointed my dad. Because he talked about, he wished I hadn't gone to school just to become a basket weaver. Now, that's not what home economics is, and it's family consumer science now, and I'm really glad that I had that chance to do that. But it was a tough transition to go from being a ski racer, and I think, in a way, if I had gotten hurt and had some forced time off, I would have been ready to go back. I used to, after I stopped racing, I used to have these nightmares about being at the top of a course and trying to go down through, and it's like turning your projector on, fast motion, and that's how I felt in these dreams, was like, I just was going so fast and I couldn't make the turns. So, but I think that was like my psyche telling me that you really weren't done with ski racing. So, but I think, I really think that there's a reason for everything, and it turned out to be great. I'm glad I became a school teacher. I also got very burned out as a school teacher, and I think when I was about your age, I started to go, what is my purpose in life? What is it that I really want to do? And that's when I started to, I love coaching, whatever sport it was that I was coaching, and so I could say, okay, I really like that. That's something I enjoy. And then because I had of my experience as a ski racer, I was asked to speak to a lot of different groups and kids, and even at one of the high schools that I taught at, Spalding High School, some of the other coaches would ask me to go and talk to their team, and so I'd do that, and I kind of would put together my thoughts, and gradually my thoughts about sports psychology kind of came together, and it's continually evolving as well. But I was asked in the 90s, I was asked to be the first keynote address speaker for the high school women's leadership conference that they had. And so I did that, and they also asked if I'd do a workshop, and that's where I started to pull together my ideas about what it took to be a good athlete, and that's where the start of my BA Cochran coaching. Didn't call it that then, but anyway. So, and I love what I'm doing now. Right now, I'm not teaching in the public school system anymore because I was very burned out with that. But now I am teaching skiing at Cochran Ski Area, and I absolutely love that. It's so rewarding for me to be able to help somebody that's never put skis on and take them from whatever level they're at, to try and get them to be able to handle the skis and make turns and come down in control and build up their confidence. That I love doing that, whether it's little kids, ski tots, 3 to 5 year olds, or adults, older adults that start with a lot of fear. And so that's one thing I do. And the other thing I do that I absolutely love is working with the athletes on the sports psychology. And the more I learn, it's like I love working with them and trying to get them to overcome their things that they're working on, to that kind of the obstacles that hold them back. So
Awesome. Oh man, Dave, I quit. Sorry, I'm gonna go coach field hockey again. All right, now that that's settled.
Yeah, I'm glad you should do that.
Yeah.
So I got to talk to some young girls in St. Albans BFA school. I think it was field hockey. And it was really cool to go talk to a group of girls, because the male coaches are like, what is a period? Oh my God. Girls, hormones, like boyfriends, all these things. And so as a young high school girl, and also boys too, but I've heard a lot of students are like these really great athletes. And I'm like, oh my God, you should go to like D1, D2, like get a scholarship, help pay for your college tuition. Not every athlete gets that opportunity, and not all colleges offer sports scholarships. They'll offer educational scholarships, I think, if they're D3 or whatnot. But in terms of like encouraging young girls or, to pursue a professional athleticism career, it's tough. I've noticed there's a lot of professional athletes out there, like male and female. They're sleeping in their van if they can afford to buy the vans, or they're sleeping on couches, or they're rent with 5 other people because they're in this cool training camp together. And they're just all poor professional athletes is what it is, trying to make a living because they don't want to get a real job, as some people say. Being a professional athlete is a real job, but it's a really hard job. I'm not putting it down. I'm a professional athlete and a professional flight nurse. It's hard work, but I have my health insurance from my nursing career, so I can go play my hobby job, and it keeps it fun because it's my hobby job, and I'm not counting on a paycheck from my race. And I feel very bad for the people that are just like counting on a check every time. Like, it's really stressful. But I'm also saying that we should encourage our young athletes to pursue fitness outside of high school, whether that's professionally, whether that's in college, D1 through 4. It teaches you time management. It teaches you, like, I joined a sorority for free. Like, what? You didn't have to pay for the stupid dues that you go to. No offense to sororities, they're great, or fraternities. But I got to go, like, be part of a track, like an athletic sorority, basically, and it was so cool. We didn't have a male track team at that point because of the Title IX stuff. I just think joining, whether you want to be on a team or individual, like track can be a team and individual, swimming, same thing, or the field sports or soccer, or anything that gymnastics or anything that you want to do, dance team, they're all sports. And I don't know if you've ever seen a pole dancer, but damn, they're an athlete in itself. And it's just not a team sport. So I just think that, like, having our young adults be not pushed, but like really encouraged to continue fitness after high school is like really important. Plus, my dad didn't have to pay as much for college tuition, so that was great. And what was the other thing? I guess found ways to make it happen. How did I make it happen being a professional athlete? It was a lot of commitment, a lot of time, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of people saying no, begging people to sponsor me or give me free shit, or just like, being an ambassador and promoting product. But it's just like, I never gave up. And if you follow me on social media, it's Orla Walsh 16. Everyone give it a follow. I just hashtag never give up. Like, I just have never given up. And I think, like, if you take anything away of the babbling stuff that I'm saying tonight, is that, like, never giving up on a dream. We are capable. And, like, the affirmations of saying, like, I am capable of getting on the podium. I am capable of following my dream as what other athlete or whatever. Like, my dream to be a flight nurse, well, guess what? That came true, like, 2 years ago. And I just, like, now what I'm like, what's next? I need another dream. I'm also very goal-oriented, and I like checking boxes. So sitting in this, like, time in my life, becoming a better flight nurse and becoming a better version of myself is my challenge and my goal. It doesn't always have to be like these, like, a date or a specific thing, but like maybe like my goals right now, I've been recovering from an ACL meniscus injury and surgery, and that has been that forced off season. I actually was listening to a podcast about how does one retire from sport. The day I injured myself and tore my ACL, I was like, what like universal shit is going on here? Like, someone's talking to me, but it was just the weirdest thing, because you can retire from sport a couple different ways: getting injured, doing it on your own, and then always questioning, did I do the right thing? Or like someone else just telling you, like putting you down. And I was fortunate enough that, like, the silver lining of everything in my life, that I tore my ACL, and I was super burned out. If I had any more races in me, which I had to compete a couple more times last year, I would have probably not done well to my standards. I wouldn't have placed on the podium. And I just would have been like more down on myself. So the universe really sends you some messages, like my body just needed a break and I wasn't listening to it. I think that's another great thing as a young athlete. I understand, I thought about this. High school students don't get to choose their days off unless it's the weekend. You go to practice Monday through Friday, and if you feel like crap, or you have your period, or if you didn't sleep well, or your boyfriend just broke up with you, or you didn't eat, or maybe your parents don't cook you food at night, or whatever, you don't get to choose to not work out, or like your coach. Talking to your coach is important, but it's just not the same as when you're an adult. You get to choose when you work out, what day is the day you go hard, what day is the rest day, or you go pamper yourself with a massage, So just being an athlete and like pushing yourself to get to those professional markers in your life, like it's not for everyone. There's really a lot of down days in terms of really low times in your life. Sometimes you lose really bad in a race, and it's not always about winning, which is what I thought it was. The more I learned more when I failed and lost a race than I did when I won a race. When I win, I'm just like, well, I want more. And it's like, how can you want more if you won the race? And it's just like, I just want to be better and be the best. And so when you lose, or you fail a test or something like that, or you don't get a job that you thought you deserved you applied for, it teaches you that that you need to be better, or like maybe not better, but like there's something to always take away from it, or a learning point, like your mental game. Like you probably, I've gone into the spear throw, like I'm gonna miss, and I miss. And so there's this cool book called With Winning in Mind. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It's by like Olympic biathletes, which is where you ski and shoot in the Olympics. And there's a lot of cool psychology stuff of like training your mind and just like subconsciously you're visualizing things. So I challenge everyone here, let's say you have a track meet or a game or a test or some sort of challenge that you're not really good at, or you just like, oh man, I'm gonna suck, or gosh, I'm gonna fail. I want you to, the night before, I do this before every race, I'm in the hotel room, and I visualize myself throwing the spear, and like I visualize making it every time. I'm not missing it. I'm always making it. And so the next morning you do the couple more visualizations before the event, and you do positive like affirmations, and never say like, oh man, I'm gonna miss it. And the only thing is you visualized it, you've said it in your mind, so when you get to it, it's all you're gonna do is you're gonna make it. So I think I'll end on that.
God, I gotta get out of here and like run around or something. I'm getting too motivated. So Barbara Ann, I just want to touch, and then I'll open it up and I'll quit yamming up here. Cochran's is much more than a ski area, and you are much more than an instructor. I just really quick want to do a quick poll. If you have been instructed by Barbara Ann, or your kids have been instructed by Barbara Ann, or you know of someone who's been instructed by Barbara Ann, please raise your hand.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, God, that got me a little more choked up than I was thinking it was. So there you go. But the ski community in Vermont is special, and Cochran's has built something just incredibly special. Can you talk a little bit about what that sort of means to you?
Sure. When I was 9 years old when we moved to Richmond, and when I moved there, it was just a house. There was a place where you could see where the barn was, but that had burned down, so that wasn't there anymore. And then it was pretty much just woods. It was like it wasn't a ski area. It wasn't anything like that. But the dream that my dad had was he always wanted to build a rope tow in the backyard. And so he went ahead, and we moved there in mid-September of 1960, and by February of 1961, Dad had the rope tow put up in the backyard and started, so we were able to start skiing there. Not long after that, he put up lights on the back of the house, and then one or two poles on the hill, and then we could start skiing. A couple nights a week, we'd ski, and friends from all over. I don't think my parents charged for it or anything. It was always about the experience of it. That was what was most important, and the ability just to train. So At that point, it really definitely was a mom and pop ski area. It wasn't much more than that. The lodge, the first lodge, was the kitchen in the house, and we lost a pan of brownies one time to a couple of kids. That mom had made brownies, and they'd come out of the oven, and they smelled so good. So when these two kids went in to warm up, it's like they thought they could just try one. But they couldn't. They didn't stop at one. The whole pan of brownies was gone. So then the other story is that Dad kind of had a vision. We didn't own, when they first bought the land. It was the house, and it was about 100 acres, and Dad wasn't really quite sure of where the boundaries were. So he started going up, and where the ski area is now, where the Mighty Might is, he started to cut down some trees, but somebody came up to him and said, Mr. Cochran, do you realize that this isn't your property? And so he didn't, of course, and so he realized that he couldn't make the lifts up there, so we went back to the land right behind the house, and he started to try and do something up there. But then within a very short period of time, that land that Dad had been cutting the tree on did come up for sale, and so Mom and Dad bought that, and that's where the ski area is now. So, over the years, Mom and Dad were able to keep it going, and then Dad passed away in 1998, and at that point, there was a community of families and parents and that loved Cochran's and wanted to try and keep it going. So there were meetings on, what do we do? Mickey's not going to be around for much longer, and trying to figure out how to handle it. And so at that point, we decided that we'd make it a nonprofit. The government at that point didn't really believe that a ski area could be a nonprofit. And Mom's point was that it was always a nonprofit. So anyway, we were able to convince the government that we should be a 501c3, and that went ahead. And so that opened up to be able to put, we have a board of directors now that kind of lead the area. And my mom passed away in 2005, and when she passed away, we realized that if we really wanted to keep this going, that we were going to have to put in a much better snowmaking system. So before that, Dad had designed a snowmaking system where he tried to capture the water off of the hill. There's lots of springs on the hill, and so he tried to capture the water and then built his own guns and mixed air and water and made snow. But he would, on the Mighty Might, which is our beginner hill, it's not very big, it would take him probably 3 nights of making snow to get that much snow. It just wasn't very efficient, and so we knew in 2005, when Mom passed away, we really knew that we wouldn't be in existence if we tried to keep that model. So at that point, we tried to raise money to put in a snowmaking system where we could draw water from the river and have a pump house and pump the water up on the hill. From that time on, the community has expanded tremendously. We were able to put in the snowmaking, and once we got snowmaking, then that made the ski racers especially had a much better, more durable surface to be able to ski on. And now, when we make snow, we try and make 5 feet of snow on the trails so that it lasts. I don't know about this year, but it has lasted. It's been kind of fun because you see patches of snow in May even, and so we've survived because we were able to put in the snowmaking system. Every year, there's always some sort of project. Sometimes it's a big project, sometimes it's a much smaller project. But what's happened is that the community seems like it's really embraced us, and has come to us for more and more programs, which has been unbelievable. My nephew, Jimmy Cochran, once he stopped being a ski racer and then also stopped being a coach, actually once he graduated from UVM, then he became the general manager at Cochran's, and he's like young, so much energy. I think for my generation, we kind of had started to, we loved Cochran's and tried to keep it going, but it was this next generation that's really taken over, and now it's like our kids are interested too. So there's even like that. So our kids and then grandchildren, like our grandchildren, are starting to come along. So it's been really fun, and they're taking over. But now we have things like Friday Night Lights. Has anybody gone to Friday Night Lights? Yeah, and Friday night dinners. So when we first started, we put up lights. That was one of the projects over the summer, quite a few years ago. And once we put up the lights, then we had public skiing on Friday nights, but we didn't get many people coming. So we decided that one of my nephews decided that we should offer Friday night skiing for $5. So we did that, and that increased the thing. And then, interestingly enough, Laura Farrell was the one that came up with the idea for Friday night dinners. So it's her.
I'm finding that Laura was the sort of idea woman behind a lot of things that
Yes.
are awesome in Vermont. So
Yeah.
shout out to Laura.
Yeah.
But I think it's safe to say that skiing in Vermont today would not be what it is without the Cochrans and without what you've built. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
But I think it's time to turn it over to you guys and see sort of what questions you have for Orla and Barbara Ann, and you're welcome to direct it at one of them or both of them, and I'll have my mic guy come up and run around. David, I'm sorry. So sorry, David.
Question?
I guess this could be for really both of you, but I was wondering if you have an opinion on technology in sport, and I'm sure it's changed a bunch with the introduction of like Garmin watches and iWatches and all of that, but whether you think it's a benefit or a detriment, or how that really even plays into the psychology of sport.
Yeah, I've racked my brain if I should jump on the wagon of having, I have a Walmart special watch right now, partly because I'm a bit cheap to buy. I did have an Apple Watch and it was too much for me, but yeah, so there's a couple trains of thought. So there's that natural person that, like myself, that I am very intuitive, like intuitive eating and dieting. I wouldn't say a diet, or intuitive with my body. So I could wake up in the morning after training for the last week, and when I feel like exhausted and fatigued, I know that it's not a day that I need to go out and kill myself for 3 hours in the gym. That comes with a lot of experience and training, I think, and just like knowing what my body, like all of what my body is doing. But a lot of people are super nerdy, and that's cool. The numbers overwhelm me, and my job alone is enough numbers, so I probably just like don't need to deal with that. But yeah, some people really thrive with the heart rate monitor, the apps on the phone, the really cool watches. There's the really great information to be had. VO2 maxing, which is like when you run or exercise, and it tests to the point, and you guys can probably Google this and better than what I'm going to explain it, but of what like your threshold is right before you start making lactic acid, and you go into your anaerobic metabolism. So you can get really in depth with that stuff, and it's really cool. There's a resting HRV, which is the in between your heartbeats when you're really rested over time. You can follow that number in the morning, and it'll tell you like ding ding ding, you're ready to like get out there and like kill it, or it's like no man, you need to like rest and recover. Lots of different programs. So I challenge you again, like, to have some homework, but like if you're into that stuff, I think it's great. I found myself doing a Ragnar race or run, and it was my first time using it, and I just kept looking at it, and it detracted me from like being in the zone. And there's also this thing called the flow state, or like the Zen state, or like when you're in, it's also like your runner's high or whatnot, where I don't like to think when I'm doing these like CrossFit workouts. Like I'm sort of mindless, or a state of like of the flow state, and so then I can barely even think of like what my workout is, so I have to like write it down because I really don't want to think about it. So in that sense, I just like to go, and I know my body. The numbers are cool, but I'm not really into it. But you can.
Yeah, so when we didn't have a lot of technology when I was racing. But my son is on the U.S. ski team now, and watching the transformation from the information that I had when I was racing versus what the information and the knowledge that they help the athletes now. I think it probably does help them a lot with the technology. I'm just trying to get technology to be able to use Google Sheets and things like that. So.
All right, I'll give you an hour of Google Sheets. We can an hour of skiing.
Okay, that's a deal.
That's a good deal. We have a question here, but raise your hand if you're a student, please. Higher, smaller students over there. Right?
Jonah, put your
All
hand
right.
up.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
So you're here with a group of women founders, and it took a lot of work on your own behalf where you were managing your own brand of you in your own mind, if not trying to sell it yet. Can you speak to the development of yourself, like in the light of your business that was you?
Yeah, it's been a developing product, I guess, and it's going to develop as I continue to grow and learn about myself. I know I didn't get to touch on it about how I became like from a Division I athlete or a high school star athlete to Division I to then graduating and not knowing what the heck I was going to do with myself. And I think that takes in how my brand and who I am has grown as a young woman. But like, I was super insecure. I was super unsure of myself. I wasn't the Vermonster this whole time. Maybe I was, I just didn't know it. But like I said, surrounding yourself with the people that raise you up, like girlfriends that are on your team, or like people at work that just like cheer you on, or your cheerleaders. My PT from Sunrise Physical Therapy, Pam, is here, and she like was the biggest cheerleader. I would walk into PT crying during my ACL recovery, but surrounding yourself with people that support you, raise you up, and don't beat you down has been part of like my brand as an athlete. And also raising up other athletes. Like I think supporting, letting your girlfriends know and your female friends that they are killing it and they are doing great things. We need to remind each other of that, support each other of like, you just rocked that speech, or you just rocked that 100, or like whatever it is. You need to know that like when you give off positive energy, you will receive it back through the universe in some way. And so building my brand, I've had a lot of questions of who am I? What's my goal? Do I need a lot of likes on Instagram? Well, you won't get sponsored nowadays if you don't have the likes, or like, it's just like stupid. And it like makes me crazy because that's not who I am. And like, if I hold true to who I am, I'm just gonna be me. And I often hashtag be you. I'm weird and I'm proud of it. I'm a little nerdy, I'm a little quirky, but like just be yourself when you're building a brand or building who you want people to see. Don't fake it. Don't lie to the public of who you aren't. Like I struggled through my surgery recovery and I was open about it. And now I'm like doing much better, and like I'm sharing that as well. So building your brand and who I am. Like if people don't want to follow me, I don't show like nudies and I don't swear, and I, like that's not who I am. That's not my brand. but my brand is like, be you, be outside, and just be passionate about something. It doesn't have to be what the next person's passionate about, but like, it will bring you forward in life being really strong-willed about something and something you love. Don't do stuff if you don't like it. If like, I've been learning recently saying no is okay and not feeling bad about it. Like, I don't want to go out and I don't want to go do these things with people, and I'm just like, I'm not feeling it, and don't feel bad about it. So I just think, like, don't try to please somebody just to make them happy. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, and that's how I've been building my brand and just living life and trying to just have fun with it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm raising an athlete, and she is amazing, and something that has inspired me is seeing how she works with her team, and she competes against her teammates, and they support each other, and they're encouraging, even when one wins and the other one doesn't. But as a parent, what is a piece of advice you could give me when raising a young athlete so that she can be her best self as well as take care of those around her? Just a little nugget.
I'll try and answer that a little bit. First of all, make sure that when you're encouraging her, that it's honest encouragement. You don't want to say, "Oh, you had such a great run," when you know that it wasn't a great run. And one of the best pieces of advice for a parent that I've heard is that one of the things that athletes, there was a study done that athletes were asked, "What's the worst thing about your parents?" or the worst things that they've done, and the answer was the car ride home, and that was, and what that meant was that was when the parents tried to kind of rehash, like either criticize the child for what they hadn't done and should have done, and just really come down hard, like don't be wasting my time. It's like so avoid that, and then but they also asked, what's the best thing that you heard from your parents? And the best thing that they heard was, "I love watching you do whatever it is." And so that's what I encourage parents to do, is to focus on the love that you have, just watching them participate, no matter how they do or anything. It's like Ryan, my son, is racing World Cup now, and so I get to live stream him, and a few years ago he was racing in the first World Cup race of the season in October in Solden, Austria, and I could see him out of the start, but he was starting so far back that they didn't show the whole run, so they cut out the steep basically and saw him at the finish. So that's what I told him. I said, "Ryan, I saw you out of the start and I saw you at the finish. How was the steep?" And his reply, he didn't do very well, and I knew he'd be disappointed. So I was trying to figure out what I should say to him, and that's what I said. And his response was, "Steep." And so then I went, "Oh, shoot, okay, what am I going to say that try and get him to say a little bit more." So I said, "Well, how was it on the steep?" And he said, "I was slow." And so at that point, it's like I knew better, but I just wanted to communicate with him. I wanted to, say something to him. And so then I just said, "Oh, bummer," and then I went on and talked about other things. But the thing that was interesting to me was that after that exchange, a few days later, he wrote to me, he texted me, and he said, he was telling me what he did, what his skiing was that day. So that felt really good, that I didn't keep pressuring him to try and tell me, "Oh, I'm just really disappointed," or, "I really sucked on that race." And so I kind of backed off, and I think that's important for parents, is to learn to back off. And the time that they don't want to process when they haven't done well. They don't want to process it right away. You have to give them time to be able to do that. But the best thing you can tell them is, like, "I love watching you participate."
Thank you both so much for being here. There was an article that just came out again today about the U.S. soccer team and the equal pay fight. Can you talk a little bit about your experience being amazing women in your sports, and if someone has minimized your experience, kind of how you dealt with that, and how maybe some advice you would give to young athletes in that situation?
Want to go?
Yeah, you can go first.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. Well, when I was competing, we actually were considered to be amateurs, so we weren't paid. There were athletes that were being paid, but they were being paid under the table. So to race in the Olympics, you really were supposed to be an amateur. And back in my day, what they came up with was the associations, the national associations, felt that in order to be a national caliber racer, you really couldn't have a job outside of, you really needed to work out and you needed to train in the off season. And so what they came up with were something called broken time payments. And so the women did get paid less. I think the last year I raced, the women were making $3,000, and I think the men made $5,000 to help with expenses. So, and that was before Title IX. So, I mean, obviously it's 2020, and that's still an issue today. That, although in ski racing, the top women ski racer, Michaela Schifrin, has won more money than the men. And I've looked at their earnings, and the earnings, like, as you go down, the women are making more. So I think in ski racing that it has evened out.
And I think with the obstacle racing stuff that I do and all of that, I don't see that the men and women are getting paid like differently based on their gender, but based on their talent and what races they're winning, that they're receiving more sponsorship and race contracts with different people. So in that sense, I feel like it seems like it's evening out, but that soccer stuff is, I'm glad that they're putting up a good fight.
What's Mrs. Cochran?
Yes.
How big is your skiing place?
It's relatively small. we have a little beginner hill that's called the Mighty Mite, and then we have a T-bar that actually has been extended in the last 2 years. It's a little bit longer. It goes down a little more towards the bottom than it did before, and it goes a little higher than when my dad put it in. And we probably have about 8 trails, depending on how you count them. You'll have to come and visit.
Hi guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much as well. This has been so inspiring. As a 23-year-old, just graduated college, kind of figuring life out, doing a lot of self-work, self-development, really resonating with a lot of stuff you guys are saying, and it's like super, super powerful. Barbara Ann, I don't know if you remember, but my freshman year, I was a little baby on the field hockey team of varsity at CVU, and you came and spoke to our team a lot about, positivity and just self-growth and personal development, and I remember it to this day in the different quadrants, upper right.
Oh yeah, upper right.
I wanted to ask if you are still doing stuff with female athletes and
I am
spreading the word.
Yeah, I do. I wish I had more and more time to be able to do that. I find that during the winter, it's really tough because I'm working at Cochran so much, and there are athletes that have asked me to work with them that I haven't been able to work with them. But and I'm learning more and more. One of the things if you were back at CVU, and I was still going to talk to the field hockey team, one of the things I'd start talking to you now about is your mindset and whether it's fixed or growth. So I think that's another key thing that I learned. I read this book a couple of summers ago called Mindset, which is a great book.
That book changed my life.
Yeah, it's awesome. And one of the things that I do when I read a book like that, I go, let me think about my family. And I go, oh, okay, that explains a lot.
I wanted to thank you for bringing up Title IX. I played soccer in K through 12, and then I was on the crew team in college, and that was when I learned about Title IX. And I'd just be interested to hear about your experience and how that shaped your athleticism through your years.
Well, I feel like for me, I was pre-Title IX pretty much. That I stopped racing in 1974, and I think Title IX came into being in 1972. Is that correct? But it really wasn't put in place until later. But I feel really fortunate growing up in the family that I grew up with my dad, because even though like Little League was just for boys, and so my dad was instrumental in starting Little League in Richmond with other parents, and my brother got to play. But then there were 4 teams in Richmond, and they'd play each other. We didn't play other towns. But by the end of the season, which was a month or a month and a half or something like that, then other teams were having issues trying to get all of the boys to show up for their games. So then it was like, the girls actually would step in and play. And one of the first games that my sister Marilyn was able to step in, like the other team was saying, "Oh, she's a girl, come in." And so her first at bat, she actually hit a home run. But so I feel like growing up, I didn't really notice so much that it was like boys favored and girls not. But I think it was particularly because of the family I was in.
And also, I can add to that. I was after when Title IX came into play, and we had a big football team, all males, at Towson University, and they had a huge stadium and so many great just facilities where they had their physical therapy and their trainers. We would sometimes get to go down there, and it was like, holy crap, it's like a mecca down here. And then I was part of, the soccer and track and field and cross country. And when I was on the track and field, we had no male team because of Title IX. And if you guys don't understand what Title IX is, it's where, don't quote me, I might be wrong, but where the monies within the university for athletics have to be evenly spread among male and female athletes. So if the football team has 3/4 of the monies, then other sports for males will suffer, and they'll remove them from the schools. And so I was on an all-female track team, and it was weird because I had boys and girls in high school. And I appreciated that we had a team for me to run on, but it was very apparent with all of that stuff. And the facilities we had were a lot different than the nice football facilities. And I think our football team sucked, so whatever. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
All right. We got to wrap up here. Can we get a quick hand for my awesome panelists up here? Awesome. Thank you all for coming out. This was our final event of this season, and I feel so lucky that both of you could be here tonight and share such amazing wisdom with all of us. And thank all of you for coming out. I know it's beautiful, and you had more daylight, so it means even more. So keep an eye on VCET. We'll have more events. Thank you to Hotel Vermont. You guys are the best. We love you. And these two will hopefully stick around a little while until Orla has to go be a flight nurse. So if you have any questions for them, I'm sure they'll be around for a few minutes. But thank you again for coming out, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you.